excited to see how this one goes.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect Cooler taking map 1, but then the other two might be going towards maxter instead. Now, it's also worth pointing out that these two players have never gone up against each other within the Quake Pro League. This is the very first time they're facing off against one another, and it is on the map that is Deep Embrace. We've got Cooler, we've got maxter, kicking it off on the perspective of the Russian King.
And already with that center point of the map, it all comes down to the first set of items, really, doesn't it? Because as always, the heavy getting that heavy armor. Oh, that feels so good as we've just started off. And Cooler already looking to get a little bit of information. Listens to the teleporter, but he still needs to figure out where has maxter gone after that. Because there are many paths. You can actually see, I think, acknowledging already that we are playing this heavy champion, right? And the number one goal you tend to go for is, right, I need to chip away at your stack with rails. I kind of like the fact that Cooler was already looking to basically stop maxter from getting a rail. Now, he has got one in and out, the benefit of maxter and the movement of Strog, but an interesting idea at the very least.
Absolutely. And Cooler, of course, is well aware that railgun is a crucial weapon on this map. He knows that it's also in a very risky position, right? It's right next to the edge of the map. There's no real item pickups near it, so you're kind of in a really bad spot if you get caught out on railgun. So I love the positional play right there. But in turn, Cooler is also still lacking the lightning gun, meaning that those medium distance fights are absolutely favoring maxter as it stands, and he needs to get some good rocket damage here.
Wow, that last one was good. 83.
That counts, yeah.
And now the rail situation definitely favors him. Another good rocket. What can you get from this? You know, we're going to try and soak up potential items on the map. Don't need to deny. Oh, there's that immediate rail for maxter. Maxter already not in the greatest of situations. There is that light to take, but with so much resources surrounding Cooler, maxter is not safe. Far from it. Oh!
Nice damage, but Cooler has to get away, won't be able to do so in time. Maxter chasing him down and getting a rail of the spawn as well. Now, I do quite like what I've seen from Cooler so far. One of the biggest points of criticism people sometimes raise about this game is that he just tends to be too aggressive. And he tends to go all in a little bit too often, even when the situation doesn't favor him enough. Now, so far, he has given no such signs. He's playing a very deliberate, disciplined, and calculated game, keeping it to a 1-1 scoreline for the time being. But it is maxter who is now in control. Major items, he's got a bit of a rotation going on. Might be able to secure himself one more frag. Indeed, he does. Looking for the spawn rail. Doesn't quite get it, but Cooler pushing in so aggressively. It's a good thing Cooler landed that pineapple, the grenade to the face, because otherwise I think maxter would have walked away with the frag there.
Nice choice there from Cooler, pushing in with the shotgun, I think, expecting maxter to understandably be waiting for the rail angle and kind of meeting him head on, and is eventually able to get the frag from it. Now, he is licking his wounds for sure. Unfortunately, not able to get the kind of bonus prize, which was to shut down the heavy at the very least. But maxter will score the frag and a heavy at the same time. He hasn't got a lot of weapons. He's only just been able to get the rocket, but I think when life gives you lemons, you get the gauntlet out. Oh, no, but the grenade trade? Oh, dearie me. And they fight for Mega. This has been such a strange exchange. Maxter, he's in big trouble and will fall again. This has been a bit of a spaghetti fest, but honestly, when you both go for the same choice, we just have to recover. We've got plenty of time left on the map, and maxter secures yet another one. This has been a interesting couple of minutes, Flea.
We started off with such a reserved game.
Woo!
And now it has devolved into this brawl catch-up. Loving the patience on the rail there from maxter. He messed that up, the shot the first time, because Cooler just delayed walking forward, expecting the rail of the spawn. So this time maxter just straight up waited until Cooler started moving before he fired his shot. And now, player from Argentina starting to extend his lead. Heavy is going to spawn shortly. He will be the one to pick it up. Gotta be careful not to frag himself. Maxter is looking good for the time being.
I think over a pretty chaotic 3 minutes or so, maxter. Oh, they traded off. But who's going to spawn closer to all of those items? Mega side spawn belongs to Cooler. I think with the way things are going, yeah, maxter, he's holding out the angle for the rail just in case he goes there a little bit earlier. Cooler has been able to pick up a ton of resources just from that spawn alone. And now he's on the verge of getting himself a rail. maxter maybe narrowly in the lead, but a lot of frags have happened in a short space of time. We haven't even hit the 5-minute mark yet.
Cooler now does have a tremendous amount of stack. So maxter with a frag lead, but Cooler, the strategy paid off, destroying himself at his opponent off spawn, knowing that he has the better base stack, managing to just bully his way back into control. And now it is up to maxter to be so careful. If he gets caught out in the wrong place, that stack, the keel, the grenades, they can be lethal.
Always like that kind of dance in the center of the map that you tend to see at this position. maxter holding on to that all-important high ground, and the mobility just means he can get as much information as he wants, really. COOLLERZ one that has to be pretty careful here, but he's getting a decent chunk of damage. The rail misses right as Cooler escapes. maxter with a fake out. Oh, I really liked that play. Going into the fake jump pad and then kind of sitting down, looking for the rail angle, gets the second one actually, and there's Cooler again! Oh, oh, that hurts.
Yeah, gets the shot of the spawn to boot. Now maxter, 4 frags ahead, 4 more minutes to go. Still plenty of time for Cooler. Now if we take a look at the item pickups, it's exactly tight. 11 major items for either player, but the damage catch up. Massively favoring maxter. 1,200 points of damage over his opponent. Cooler just can't keep up with the pain that his opponent is dishing out.
And if we're just talking about those close range fights, there hasn't been many of them. maxter, his awareness of the map to just keep himself at arm's reach, really. The rail playing such a massive part in this game plan. The reason Cooler was trying to shut it down the second the map began. If maxter is able to play this game of just corridors and angles, by the time Cooler even gets within range to start using his close range potential, then he's pretty much going to drop already. And even then, Cooler, with the heavy champion, tends to go into a lot of these fights with less stack. maxter is so comfortable right now in that rail. Hurts a lot because fresh off the spawn, Cooler doesn't have a lot of weapons. I think he's probably got a rocket launcher, but...
Yep, rocket and now a railgun as well. Those are the only tools in Cooler's kit. Whereas maxter might not have the stack he'd like, but he has a tremendous arsenal to work with. Almost out of LG ammo though, so he's got to be careful taking those kinds of fights. And I think that from maxter's point of view, he's probably starting to already consider what he might do to just run down the clock.
Oh, this frag is taking so long for Cooler to obtain. The rockets are narrowly missing and the rail finally hits its mark. But I mean, a few seconds may be too long. At this stage in the map, any frag that takes longer than it should is going to be frustrating and maybe even game-changing as we close out the later stages here. As maxter sitting on a sizable lead. And as you said, we might be looking at how can we change the pace of this map now. maxter's done a tremendous amount of work. The aggressive rocket jump for Cooler, and he does manage to land the hit again. That one was significantly faster, but Cooler has no armor. Caught trying to go for the heavy. Oh no, the air assault. maxter gets a frag at just the right time and he steals away the heavy. That one moment, Flea, might actually be the decider.
Cooler had a clean path towards heavy, but then out of absolutely nowhere, maxter shows up with the LG, thunderously pinning him up against the wall, causing him to fail the jump, and then the peeker, the air assault, cleaning it up. And I think that with 90 seconds left on the clock, this is looking like it is going to go into maxter's favor. Damage, 2,000 points of damage for maxter over his opponents. This has been tremendous. Rails one after the other, and Cooler just unable to keep up.
maxter happy to match the pace no matter what it is. Concedes a frag there, but he does a decent chunk of damage to Cooler all the same. But now, if there's any time where you can start shifting gears and start to play a very retreat-heavy game, like look, looks for the rail shot already out of there. Because who cares? We don't want fights anymore. We just want to play this game of I am faster than you and have more frags. Therefore, you must chase me. End of the map.
I mean, looking at the weapon use, Cooler has landed 6 rails. maxter has landed 22. It's nearly 4 times as many. And it's really proven to be decisive, because what happens constantly is that Cooler will be the one to pick up the item, but then maxter is positioning himself so cleverly, taking advantage of COOLLERZ largest hitbox just to land that one rail, maybe a rocket, maybe a peeker, and he's been using it so expertly that he basically always gets rid of that stag before COOLLER gets close enough to really make anything happen.
Now at this stage, Cooler, we kind of just need to sit and think for a little bit because this map absolutely will be a done deal, and it is in fact maxter taking that first victory here and looking as absolutely on the ball as people were expecting. There's a reason he's done so well in the stage leading up to now, that when he's going up against the likes of Cooler, we even saw it, the people favored maxter through pure statistics alone. And obviously everyone just believing in this talent that he's bringing forward. End game stats. Item pickups are actually dead even, 9 each. Cooler had more of the light armors, but that was just a game of maxter having the better positions, the more efficient rail usage. I mean, played it perfectly almost.
And I think it's saying something, right? When Twitch chat bets against Cooler, knowing just how popular and beloved of a champion he is. So maxter clearly has got a tremendous amount of potential, and he's been showing that over the past few weeks as well. This is someone who just 2 stages ago got into the Pro League. Very often, those are the players that you see struggle at first, having to fight for their survival in relegation time and time again. But not maxter. He's already 5th in NA, so this man is thriving and doing exceptionally well when it comes down to it. And Cooler really hasn't had the best stage. Unable to really live up to the hype, and maxter is just playing out of his mind right now.
That's what's crazy to me, is that maxter went into Pro League and was pretty much like, okay, I'm here, I'm going to win now. And he just has done so well since his introduction. You almost never see that in the 2 years that we've been doing Quake Pro League. The endgame stats, like we said, the major items were very much split down the middle. It was just everything else just allowed maxter to ascend. The first map, and this being a best of 3, we could already almost be over as we now go into another very brawl heavy map, the Corrupted Keep. Now Cooler has historically looked pretty good on this map, if memory serves, but again, it is information versus damage, and a lot of it with maxter. There's no rail, which, to be fair, with how things have been going, is probably more beneficial for Cooler actually to not have a rail, even though he's playing visor. And maxter having to rely so heavily up close on the super shotgun, the rocket launcher, the fact that Ranger does less damage to himself with that splash, the existence of the dire orb. I mean, Cooler's gonna have to play this a lot more calculated to avoid being put in those kind of blender situations.
And if we already look at the discrepancy in damage output that we saw on map 1, having that orb might just give maxter one more tool to really add on the pain to Cooler. So this is going to be a difficult map for the Russian. It is his own pick though, so maybe that will come out and matter at some point. But there's always some concern when someone picks Visor on Corrupted Keep, right? Because it is probably the easiest map in the pool to kind of get an idea of where your opponent is at. It's really small, doesn't have a lot of verticality, and the way that it's laid out and structured makes it not that difficult to keep track of your opponent's general whereabouts. But still, there must be something that really gives Cooler the impression, at least, that having that piercing sight can help out a lot. So let's see what use he can make of that ability.
Well, the thing about Cooler with Visor is that his use of this champion on certain maps has been questioned in the past, and he's won those maps, and it's been like, there's just something about that extra layer of information that a player like Cooler will really go to town with, because it's, like I've said, one of the most fundamentally gifted players of all time. You then take what is essentially that wall hack, right? And then you've just given him all the information in the world. But now, starting things off aggressive, Cooler has to be very careful, caught by some bonus LG rounds, but they just trade item for item as we start off. The battle of the hourglasses. You have to make sure you're using it often, regular. You cannot give Ranger a ton of orbs, because on this kind of map, having an orb for every fight is like, ooh.
I love that play from maxter, by the way. He drops down as he throws the orb up, hoping that he's going to bait Cooler into going up the bounce pad, and then he just pulls the teleport and catches him off guard at the top of the bounce pad. But Cooler didn't fall for it, just held his ground at the bottom. But I still like the initiative. That just shows that maxter is a very creative player who's doing everything in his power just to make things uncomfortable for his opponents.
Cooler has had this game of always having that exact information on where maxter is, but being in position where if he comes around that corner, he's taking heavy machine gun damage, he's taking some rocket damage. And now if there's even a sign that Cooler has lost sight of him, that's where the piercing sight comes into play. I think playing this extremely reactionary game against his opponent because it's all about avoiding being in that almost checkmate position that Ranger can sometimes put you on. And in this case, gets a really good call out on the jump pad, and he wins the fight all the same. Cooler. That was a really, really impressive first frag, actually.
44% LG for Cooler, a little over 30 for maxter. That makes all the difference in those engagements. And now maxter, hyper aggressive off the spawn, just goes in with the shotgun and the orb, but falls a little short. Now maxter gets the mega after dropping a frag, and it is Cooler who secures the heavy in turn. This is a good start for the Russian player.
Loving his use of piercing sight so far as well, and it's even then, you know, he waits until he takes the heavy, then pops the piercing sight, figure out where his opponent is to the exact detail, and then it's right, I'm going to plan my next course of attack. It just means that as long as Cooler is managing this piercing sight perfectly, look, 10 seconds he's got it back. He never has to be in a position where maxter and that Ranger is going to almost give him a fight that he can't win, unless maxter is able to almost force the issue. But so far, it's been a great use of it so far. Around the corner, so much heavy machine gun damage to pump through.
As you said, excellent use of that ability. And I think that's one of the reasons why Cooler now, in contrast to map 1, is actually out-damaging maxter. Not by a tremendous amount, but still, he is staying on top when it comes to damage output. And as you pointed out, using that piercing sight is helping him so much with lining up those early bursts of heavy machine gun when maxter is on the other side of the map and just has no clue where Cooler is going to be engaging from. Now both of the items are still pretty much spawning at the exact same time, so there's no real way for any player to establish solid control yet, and that's something that we've seen for these first 4 minutes. No one consistently can get a run and a rotation on all the items going, so it's been a bit of a back and forth, a lot of trading damage, but all the frags so far have been going in Cooler's favor nonetheless.
Cooler hasn't gone into a single encounter unsure yet, and even then, again, 2 times in a row now, Cooler catches maxter fresh off the jump pad, and now maxter's lost every ounce of armor that he has. He's going to have to be very careful indeed. But I feel like at the same time, maxter doesn't want to have to use the orb in these situations just to reposition himself. Cooler has been able to take so much time during that encounter that he knows exactly where maxter is. If he moves forward now, he can keep that information nice and fresh while it's relevant, doing so much damage to maxter that he needs to be very careful on this next item. The rocket doesn't quite do it. Wait a minute. Oh, maxter goes down, but not without taking a bunch of damage. Cooler's got to be pretty careful here. There's plenty of lights to soak up, but even then, maxter, as good as it was going to get in that encounter, I think.
This might finally be maxter's opportunity to get a good frag. Doesn't have the orb available yet, so he might not be able to make it over to Mega on time. Looks like Cooler will be the one to pick it up, but maxter makes it a close and personal engagement. Drops down from above with the rockets out and at the ready. And finally gets himself a frag on the board. Lots of tribal damage from Cooler right there. Maxter might want to reconsider that push. But still, the time between the items, the heavy and the mega, isn't quite large enough for Maxter to neatly tie them both together.
Caught round the corner.
Cooler who steals away heavy, yeah.
He's been able to steal 2 items before death now, but it hasn't stopped Maxter from being able to eventually trickle down frag after frag. Only 1 more of them now. And he's going to equalize. Cooler, he had a real upper hand on pretty much the first 5 minutes. Not just working the items into his rotation, but the hourglasses too. So every time there was going to be a major moment where a fight could break out, the piercing sight is used first to give him all the information that he could possibly want. But now things are getting kind of scary. Cooler dropping down right as the rocket gets fired made me a little bit nervous. But he's back on the board. Mega going to get taken by Maxter. Cooler likely aware of Maxter's lack of armor though, especially seeing as that light is still up there, not taken.
I don't think Maxter was entirely aware of how much damage he did, or maybe he just really didn't want to risk it because he was outstacking Cooler for that final engagement over at Heavy, but he was the first to retreat nevertheless. And now we get LG on Heavy Machine Gun, so that's in favor of Maxter, but Picks up the heavy at least, before getting shot down by Cooler. That one rocket changed everything. maxter had the upper hand up until that connected, and now he is once again trailing by 2 frags. Still time left though, so he doesn't quite have to rush it. Tying it nearly up, 1 frag of a deficit now.
I like that Cooler. He's prioritizing heavy above all else. Not going to be tempted to take the hourglasses. Not going to be tempted to take anything. If we get the heavy, we have a super shotgun LG, we can fight. But Cooler. Oh, Cooler on the way forward. There's the orb. Just like that, Cooler had stack, and then I blinked and missed it. And got deleted. And now we're even Stevens, Flea. maxter has an opportunity to win this 2-0 versus Cooler.
maxter has also once again overtaken Cooler in damage dealt this map. It's different towards the start, but now the player from Argentina gets a beautiful aggressive rocket jump. And nails his opponent to the wall with the LG. This is looking so good for maxter. He knows he can still take that fight. Even though he's getting low, he has that heavy to his name. And he knows that Cooler has little to engage with at that distance.
And only an LG in hand. He has a heavy machine gun as well, but if we're having this close fight and that's all he's got, Cooler's got to make sure he's hitting an impressive trail of it. Opts to back up now, retreat a little bit, build up that speed. He is going to get himself piercing sight now as he has picked up the right hourglasses, but all he's going to do is see the outline of maxter taking heavy.
At least that should give him perfect timing on when the item is going to respawn. Heavy machine gun really has just been the weapon of choice for both of these players for much of this game. Of course, there is no railgun on Corrupted Keep, so heavy machine gun kind of fills that hole in the arsenal. Now heavy will be the next major item to spawn. Cooler has the better positioning at first, but maxter...
I was looking at that from Cooler's point of view. That was one of the sexiest mid-airs I've seen in a long time.
It's gonna buy him the Mega too. He did enough damage to just be like, you know what, you can take heavy, I'm just gonna set up on Mega. I know that I've done some good rocket damage and that will enable me to get at least something, but the LG is not working in the Russians' favor. And maxter extends his lead at what might just be a critical moment in the game. 2 frags, 1 minute to go.
This piercing sight, one of the few cases where it truly has been used aggressively, but Cooler's taken so much damage, maxter gets the call out. And he gets himself another frag on the board. He takes away the heavy, and now he's on the absolute track to try and take a few more. Mega belongs to Cooler, but now all he's got is the lightning gun. That's it. And not a lot of time in the tank, Flea.
maxter knows. Yeah. Even if he would have died without getting the frag, he knows that by setting up in these close quarter situations on the map, he can just do a lot of shotgun damage, and even if he drops down, Cooler will be hurt so much that he can't just rush off the spawn. And every second lost is only helping maxter.
Cooler's gonna get the last major item of the map. As now it's 15 seconds on the clock. 3 frags, it can't be done. maxter, even though he goes down right there, is going to get the victory here versus Cooler. Absolutely phenomenal showing. And with Cooler having such a solid start, maxter clawing his way back up, and that is the way the cookie crumbles. There's a lot of people out there, no doubt, right now, very happy for maxter. And what a sign of growth from a player that hasn't been in the Pro League for as long as almost anyone else. Here he is now, really stepping up to play.
maxter definitely representing the new blood in the Quake scene and making every one of them proud as well. Indeed, someone who hasn't been in the league for very long and now taking down Cooler, the man who got to hoist the belt over his head way back in the beginning of the Quake Pro League. So this is an incredible achievement. 2-0 as well, didn't even drop a map, which means that Cooler will be the first player to drop down to the lower bracket. So he's not out of the tournament just yet, but I do feel like he has some changes to make if he wants to have a shot at taking this tournament.
And maybe not a lot of time for that personal reflection. Speaking of, Wheat, welcome back. What do you think?
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You just cannot deny that maxter has improved over this previous stage. In map 1, he looked phenomenal. The way that started, actually, I thought the keel aggression was going to be exactly what Cooler needed, but maxter handled it so well, kind of allowed in some situations Cooler to be aggressive, and I think that's where we started to see that frag differential really expand into Maxter's favor. I enjoyed the keep match as well, you know, kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time, but you really have to give props and congratulations to Maxter for his performance here. What a way to kick things off for the round of 24. On the flip side, for Cooler, once again, we talk about these incredible hills that some of our favorite players have to climb, and Cooler's going to be the first one in line to start to climb that mountain. You know, again, showed some moments of like, there's Cooler. That's the player we know, especially early on in Deep Embrace, kind of slowing things down. Did it similarly in Corrupted Keep, but Maxter was definitely allowed to set the tempo and the pace for that series, and it's nice of him to take away the 2-0 victory. I thought that was very well played and very well deserved. So yeah, I mean, what a way to kick off the round of 24. Congratulations to Maxter with the 2-0 victory.
We saw some real promise in that second map, with the visor especially, the game plan. Kind of cycling around where almost every single hourglass on the map belonged to Cooler, and there was a moment for pretty much the first 5 minutes where not only was he cycling around all of the items, but he was picking up the hourglasses on the way. So every time there was a major moment, the piercing sight existed to give Cooler that first little piece of information, which gave him an upper hand, and then he had a nice lead because of it. But the moment Maxter essentially threw off that cycle of items, we start having less information in these fights, and now Maxter has the upper hand. He kills you, gets this item or whatever it is, and he kind of put a bit of a spanner in the works there, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Cooler, his game plan was solid, using the piercing sight the way he did, but overall it was Maxter who did most of the damage, and it was a brawl for most of it. I feel like there was one section in the game where Cooler was perhaps a bit too careless. Few pushes that were just unnecessary that ended up letting Maxter walk away with a frag. And then even if Cooler got a refrag, Maxter was always right there off the bat with that orb, just being oppressive, dishing out more pain. So Cooler kind of ran up against the wall, and then towards the end we saw Maxter kind of get more consistent control and just run away with the scoreline. So well played to Maxter. Indeed, Weed, a very well-deserved victory.
And that means our first round of 24 is over. We're going to be moving on to our next matchup after our break. It is time for another player who has improved through the previous stage, and one player who you either love or hate his playstyle. Coming up next, it's Zeneku versus Base, and we'll be back with more right after this.